It's Sports Talk New York with your hosts, Mark Rosenman and AJ Carter. Sports Talk New York is sponsored in part by Cardboard Memories, Clearview, Long Island, the law firm of Decolator, Cohen, and DePrisco, the Phoenix Tube Company, PIMS Incorporated, fueling brand performance for 30 years, Prince Associates for all your insurance needs, and Soho Table Hockey. Here are your hosts, Mark and AJ.
And good Sunday evening to you. Mark Roseman, AJ Carter with you this Sunday evening, live from the Launchpad Studios in Huntington, New York. How you doing, AJ?
Okay, Mark, how are you? Fresh from a great week. Went after the Ducks.
Yes.
And a rainy game, but had a great time.
Yeah.
And had a long interview with Frank Bolton, so stay tuned for next week.
Absolutely. And listen, it's definitely, you know what, if you're here on Long Island, it's definitely worth going out there, especially if the Mets and the Yankees are on the road. It's an easy trek. You know, every seat in the house is a great seat.
6:30 games, so you can catch the end of the Yankee or Met game.
And their roster already changed again. Akil Morris has been picked up by the San Francisco Giants. He was signed to Double-A. You know, these guys are getting picked off left and right from the Atlantic League to sign major league contracts.
And I have to tell you, Mark, I even actually have been watching hockey.
Yes.
I watched hockey today.
And we will talk.
We'll talk a lot about that later.
We'll talk a lot with Russ. But right now, it's time for the Major League Baseball Report with John Coppinger. It's sponsored by Cardboard Memories, which is one of Long Island's most reputable memorabilia retail stores for over 29 years. The owner of Cardboard Memories, Scott Stamell, is known for his knowledge and savvy of authentic autographs. He's been featured on HBO Real Sports with Brian Gumbel. Cardboard Memories possesses the honesty and integrity one would want and need from a memorabilia source. Cardboard Memories is always buying collections large and small. Let Cardboard Memories run your next charity fundraising auction. Call them to find out how they can help your organization at no cost. Cardboard Memories is located at 6401 Jericho Turnpike, Comac, New York. Visit them on their web, cardboardmemories.com, or follow them on Facebook or Instagram. Okay, so both New York teams today kind of took it on the chin. Yankees got absolutely crushed by the Phillies. Yankees are in a boatload of trouble. The Yankees, you know, it's interesting because John Harper and Bob Klapisch wrote a book back in 1993, The Worst Team Money Could Buy, about the 1992 Mets. Both of them have been around the Yankees this season. I'm wondering if that's where this season is headed, John. You know, they got bad news with Severino and his rehab. He pulled his groin. He does not look like he's going to be back. You know, it's so.
Well, if the Yankees sign Bobby Bonilla, we know that's where it's headed.
What are your thoughts on the Yankees so far, John?
I agree with you. You know, I think the two keys to the Yankees for me too, and there's a lot of things, because it seems like Freaky Friday. You know, the Mets are making those smart signings, whereas the Yankees just seem kind of one dimensional. And the players that were the main player that was supposed to give them that other dimension, which is DJ LeMahieu, has certainly not delivered on that contract that he signed. And I think that's a big problem in terms of the Yankees lineup, because him not hitting makes them even more one-dimensional than they already were. And then you have Corey Kluber, who was starting to find himself. He pitches a no-hitter, and then the next start, he gets hurt. He lasts 2 innings or 1 or 2 innings, and then he gets hurt. He hasn't been seen since. And since that day, I don't think it's a coincidence that the Yankees have been 5-13 since that day. So you've got the key signings that Cashman made, who were supposed to deliver, or who were supposed to be those guys that were going to get them to that top level, and they haven't delivered. And then the rest of the team just can't catch up because they are thin.
How many first basemen have they been through this year? And as many as Mets center fielders, and they can't seem to find the answer.
And on top of that, you had a guy who, you know, that's the other thing. You know, and I think us as fans, you know, always seem to overestimate the guys we have. Like Mike Ford was going to be unbelievable, unbelievable. He was DFA'd today.
Yeah, and meanwhile, the guy they did trade is doing great for the Giants, Talkman.
Right. Yes.
So, you know, they started making up for years. Cash made all the right moves, and, you know, Mets made all the wrong moves, and maybe the tables have turned. I mean, look
and a lot of those moves too that were meant to give them stability back then a few years ago. I think now they're kind of coming home to roost now, where you got guys like Stanton and Judge who can't stay healthy.
Absolutely. Now you take a look at the other side of town. AJ and I were just talking about it. Yeah. AJ is very upset about Familia being in there for 2 innings. I'm more upset that Joey Lucchesi didn't go another inning. I think that's where the dominoes fell. But in any case, we're both under the same conclusion. But you know what? I am totally not going to trash him, because, you know, his in-game, you know, stuff is always, for me, a big question mark. Every single thing he does, I usually disagree. I always kind of disagree with Rojas. But in the same respect, last year or the year before when the Yankees had all these injuries and we were like marveling that Boone was doing with mirrors. In some respects, Rojas is too. He's gotten the most out of a lot of players.
My point, especially why a game like today is significant, you really put the hammer on a team as good as the Padres if you sweep them. And if they held and swept and they were bad managerial decisions away from at least having a better chance and having taking a 2-1 lead into the 8th and maybe into the 9th, where they could have had Diaz pressure, and we won't go there. John, what are your thoughts about this?
Well, it's funny. It's all about perspective, right? If they lose today because Joey Lucchesi got strafed by the Padres lineup, then I think you can live with it because it's like, okay, nobody expected Joey Lucchesi to win. But he was good. He was good for 5 innings. I didn't mind them taking him out because they haven't let him face the third time through the order at all this year. And the third time, if he had pitched the 6th, it would have been the third time through for guys like Will Myers and Tatis and Machado. So they didn't want to risk it. So I get that. Leaving Familia in for a second inning when he wasn't so impressive in the first kind of scratches my head. He got the double play in the 6th by Machado, and Machado really helped him out on that by swinging at a pitch up and in, and he got jammed. But then leaving him in for the 7th, I thought was a mistake. And then certainly after he let off the 7th with a walk and a single, he should have been out right then and there.
That's the place where you pull him.
Yeah. Now in Rojas's defense, there were four of their best bullpen arms were not available today. But all the more reason why you don't let Jacob Barnes come in to the game at 2-2 with the bases loaded and Tatis up. I think it was like the worst possible option. A guy who gives up 2 home runs per 9 innings, didn't understand that.
Well, like Trevor May's been pitching, that would have been a bad choice too.
Well, I also think after the game, Pete Alonso said that Luis Rojas was told by the owners to bring him in because this way, the pitchers won't get huge contracts next year. But we'll leave that alone. All right, John, we'll speak to you next week. John Coppinger,
got it.
Heard here each and every week with the Major League Baseball Report. We're going to take a quick break, and on the other side, Yankee, the first designated hitter in baseball history. Yankee, he is somewhat of a legend. He was a very big fan favorite, and he had a very good career, short as it was. But Ron Blomberg joins us right after the break.
Do you own a business? When is the last time you actually had a visit from or even spoke with your insurance representative? Did your current insurance agency sell to another firm or maybe merge, leaving you without the attention you deserve? Prince Associates is a provider of commercial insurance nationwide and represents some of the finest insurance carriers in the industry. Prince Associates has been representing commercial clients since 1965, and we continue to grow and offer our personal services in a competitive and ever-changing market. If you want back the insurance relationship you deserve, reach out to us, 516-822-6550. That's area code 516-822-6550. And ask for Leith or Craig, or find us on the web at www.princeins.com.
And welcome back to Sports Talk New York. Mark Roseman, AJ Carter with you this Sunday evening. We're just waiting to get Ron on the phone.
So, where are you at? Now, let's go back on the Mets. You not only could throw Luis Rojas under the bus, but what would you have done in that situation?
I would have gone another inning with Casey.
Okay, but not once made that decision, and that decision is probably made by the front office, not by him.
Yeah, I would have I would not have let Familia go out the second time around.
Okay. Yeah.
Joining us now is a man who's done it all in the game of baseball. He was a designated hitter, first baseman, right fielder for the New York Yankees and Chicago White Sox, as well as a manager in the Israeli Baseball League. He was the first designated hitter in Major League Baseball history. Over 8 seasons, he compiled a .293 batting average. He had 52 home runs, 224 RBIs. For his career, he had .304 against right-handers and .304 with 2 out and runners on scoring position, as well as .325 when the score was tied. He was inducted into the National Jewish Sports Hall of Fame in 2004. He is the author of 2 great books, Designated Hebrew, the Ron Blomberg story, and his latest, The Captain and Me, on and off the field with Thurman Munson. It is a thrill to welcome Ron Blomberg back to Sports Talk New York. Welcome back, Boomer. How you doing?
Hey, big guys. It's great to be able to talk to you again. And I'm sorry I've been so hard to reach. Since this book has come out, this book has done extremely well, and it's been fun, and it's been #1 for the last almost about 6 weeks. So I've had a great time with it, but it's always great to be able to talk to y'all.
So we mentioned that this is your second book. This one is co-authored with a very good friend of the show, Dan Epstein. How did this project come about, and how did Dan become part of the project?
Well, basically, I have looked at, for the last 4 or 5 years, Thurman's ballots has gone down and down and down. And I started thinking, how in the world can somebody this good, meant so much to the New York Yankees, meant so much to baseball and to the fans up in New York? And, I kept on thinking. I said, I got to maybe do something about it. Okay, so I was down in Yankee fantasy camp, and Diana Munson was down there with Kay Mercer, who is, of course, Bobby Mercer's wife, and Helen Hunter, who was Catfish Hunter's wife. And so I went up to Diana, who is a very, very close friend of mine, and I found out there has been so many great books written about Thurman, but none of the books have really talked about what type of person he was off the field, because majority of the people hated him when he played because he was a tough cookie. He was a blue collar guy behind the plate. He was tough. So Diana Munson refused to do any of the forwards for any of the books that has been written about Thurman. So I went to Diana and I said, Diana, what I'd like for you to do, and she said, Ron, I know what you want to do. You want to write a book about Thurman, and you want me to do the forward of the book. So basically I did. She came up to me. She started crying. She said, of all the people, you would be the top person, could really write a book about Thurman and what type of person he was. And because of Dan Epstein, my literary agent, Rob Wilson, knew that Dan Epstein was maybe looking for a project. So he contacted Dan Epstein, and that's how it got started. And Dan is just an unbelievable writer. I mean, he really is. He's a great writer.
And he's also, a big-time aficionado of that era in baseball. That is his wheelhouse for sure. You mentioned the forward by Diana Munson, who is a fabulous woman. I've had the opportunity many times at the Munson Awards dinner to meet her. Just unbelievable. But she talked about the difference between the two of you, and she said that she thinks part of Thurman wished he could have been a little more like Ron. I'm wondering, is there a part of Ron that wishes he was a little more like Thurman?
Well, I wish I was Thurman in a sense where I wish I was healthy. I had a few more years that I wasn't on the DL. But no, hey, the guy up above made Thurman. And what made us so good together, because we came from different backgrounds. I was a number 1 draft choice in '67. He was the number 1 draft choice in '68, and I got to meet him in '69 down in Fort Lauderdale, down in spring training. And he loved to play golf, he loved to fish, and he loved to eat. Those are the 3 kickers that I loved. So we really, I come from Georgia and Atlanta, and back then Atlanta was a very, very it was a southern town. And, of course, Thurman came from Canton, Ohio. There was a Midwest blue-collar town. And we just hit it off. And we really, really did. And, I enjoyed playing for New York. The greatest thing in the whole world, to be part of the New York Yankees, to be able to talk to people like yourself. And the greatest thing was me rooming with Thurman and to really get to know a person who was our team captain and who was a guy that, we would do anything for. And Thurman was the best of the best, and he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. And I'm going to do everything I can to help promote him to get him in.
So let's talk. One of the things you introduced Thurman Munson to was Jewish food. Tell us about the first time that Thurman Munson had a pastrami sandwich.
Oh, it's very, very simple, because we trained down in Fort Lauderdale. And, of course, Miami is just 45 minutes away from Fort Lauderdale. And me being a Jew from the South, and I knew about all the matzo balls, the pastramis, the corned beefs, but we didn't have the good stuff like they did up, of course, New York. And the second biggest Jewish city in the country is Miami. So I was very, very lucky. I got to know a lot of the delicatessens down there because I used to eat down there and bring them pitchers and baseballs. So when Thurman and I became friends, I wanted to really, because he loved to eat and I love to eat, and I took him to quite a few delis down in Miami, and he loved them. I mean, he never knew what a matzo ball soup was. He never knew pastrami's, corned beef, half sours. He never knew Dr. Brown's. He never knew about the potato salad and coleslaw.
How about the onion rolls?
Yeah, he never knew anything about it. Yeah, you knew that. I mean, and when I talked to him about a bagel, he said, the first thing he said, yeah, we get Linder's down in Canton, Ohio. Yeah, that's right. And the funny part about it is once we became friends, he said, I'm going to take you to one of the best places we're going to eat. He took me to White Castle hamburgers, and that's what he took me from. I'm taking him to the expensive Jewish food, so he takes me to the nickel White Castles. But hey, we got along so well, and he was such a wonderful man, and he was such a wonderful family person, and that's what I want the people to realize, what type of person he was and what type of general he was out on that field. And I mean, he had so much respect of everybody on that team, and that's why Billy Martin made him the team captain. But as soon as he came to New York, and as soon as he put that uniform on, he had that it factor, and you knew right off the bat that he's going to do something, and he's going to lead. And even though he wasn't considered the team captain, he was the team captain as soon as he put on that Yankee uniform.
It's interesting because the book, if people didn't get designated Hebrew, which touches on your career a bit, this also reinforces some of the things in your career. And you mentioned how you guys were back-to-back '1 draft picks. But it's interesting for me is the fact that your career as well as your relationship in Thurman 67, you pretty much had the Holy Trinity. As the Yankees hold the #1 draft pick, you at that point had scholarship offers to play basketball for John Wooden at UCLA or to play football for Bear Bryant at Alabama. I'm just wondering, have you ever wondered what your life would have been like had you gone that route?
The only way that I would have signed to play football or to play basketball if I was not drafted by the New York Yankees. And I was very, very lucky to know probably maybe, a year before that the Yankees would draft me #1 if I would have stayed healthy. And if they would have had, back then, the only time you had a #1, well, the Yankees had the #1 draft pick because they had the worst record. And if they started winning, they probably, they would not have been I would not have been the #1 draft pick. Well, not by the Yankees. And the Chicago Cubs already told me if the Yankees did not draft me, they're going to draft me #1. And they're drafted #2. But I already made up my mind that if the Yankees were not going to draft me, I was going to sign and play basketball or football. But that was a no-brainer for me. Being a Jew coming up to New York City, #1, #2, I became a role model to so many kids up in New York. And the greatest part about it, back then, we made no money. We made no money whatsoever. So everybody always had second jobs, right? So my second job during the whole season, I was related to every Jew, and I did every wedding. I lit every candle. That was my secondary job, was every weekend on a Saturday, if they're not real religious, or of course Sunday, I did every wedding, I did every bar mitzvah, bat mitzvah. So I was related to every Jew in New York City. So, it was really fun. I love New York. The people were just unbelievable to me, even to this day.
And
Yes.
You know what's also cool about the book is because, a lot of younger people have heard the name Thurman Munson, but you touch a little bit on a guy who I think, baseball history has not been that kind to. I very rarely do you ever hear him talked about, but you touch on Joe Pepitone a bit and your recollections of him, one of the great characters of the game. But the views that, Thurman, there were certain things that irked Thurman about Joe. Could you tell our audience a little bit about your opinion of Joe and as well as Thurman?
Let me tell you something. I met Joe, of course, down in spring training. This guy was so talented. This guy was so talented on the field and off the field. Number one, he was a great ball player when he wanted to and when he showed up for the game. Number one. Okay, because a few times Joe would say, well, I'd rather fish than play in a ball game this weekend. So, he wouldn't come to a game. He was so talented. I mean, he could run, he could throw, he could field, and he could hit with the best of them if he wanted to. Okay, that's number one. Number two, I think that, Joe was always, a party type of person. When Thurman and I went down spring training, I think Joe last year, I forgot what year Joe's last year was, when he left the Yankees and went to Chicago.
73, I think.
It's 73. And he was such a character. And the good part about it was, we used to frequent his place, his establishment. And when Joe was in there, I mean, number one, Joe could, you probably don't even know this, Joe could sing, Joe could dance, and he could tell stories with the best of them. And Thurman was always upset with him because he never gave 120% every time he was at the ball game. Okay, I mean, he was looking up at the stands and trying to find, somebody to party with. Let's be honest. Hey, Joe was one of the best. Him and Namath probably, and Bo Belinsky, were probably one of the top threes. And hey, I respect him for it. I mean, if he could do it, he can do it. I mean, he was so talented. And Thurman was a guy that whenever he was on the field, he gave 120%. And when Thurman did not see somebody that really actually gave 120%, he gets a little bit upset. And he had a few words with Joe a few times. But hey, everybody was friends with Joe. Even to this day, I see Joe at the stadium a lot. He looks great. I don't know if he's 80 years old this year.
It's unbelievable. It is unbelievable.
And I mean, he really looks great.
What type of hairpiece does he have now?
I really don't know. And the funny part about it was, he always had like I said, well, see, I was just a young kid, and the people that really got onto him was Mantle, DiMaggio, Yogi, and all those guys, Clete Boyer, Phil Linz, all those guys always used to get on him because you had no idea what hairpiece he would have. One day he would have like a blonde streak on the back of it. Even back then, that was a big deal. And then he'll have his whole flush up, and he looked like it looked like a bird cage. It looked like he had like 4 or 5 birds in it, and he was just so funny. And hey, and you used to watch him, and it was so fun to watch him fluff it up. I don't know if you have ever seen him do that, but he used to fluff it up and used to take, and back then a hair dryer was a big deal then because nobody had any idea what a real hair dryer was. And, and he used it. Oh gosh, even when he was out on the field, he would used to come in and used to, blow dry, he used to fluff up his hair. And then his hat was sitting on it, on his head. And I mean, even to this day, it's so funny. And, I saw him about 2 years ago, Yankees, about maybe 3 years ago, Yankee Stadium. We were doing an appearance. And I couldn't look at him. I always had to look at his hair to see, sometimes in later years, he didn't have his, toupee on. And if you want to talk about somebody that's scary, you look at Joe Pepper. You look at Joe Pepitone without hair. Pick out there. Picture Joe Pepitone with no hair, and that's a scary sight. That's really a scary sight. Yeah.
Well, speaking of hair, 1973, the year you debut as the first designated hitter in baseball, you and Thurman are actually called into the new owner, George Steinbrenner's office and ordered to get a haircut. Can you tell us a little more about what happened at that point?
Oh, yeah. It was very, very simple. Back then, most of the guys used to go to the ballpark together. Nobody wanted to splurge 25 cents to go to the George Washington Bridge. So basically, we get into the clubhouse. It was Catfish then. It was Piniella then. Let me see. I can't remember. I know it was Thurman. It was Catfish. I think it was Nettles. I'm not sure. But, everybody. So I get down there. So there was a letter. Not a letter, it's an envelope. And there was like 4 or 5 guys who just picked up the envelope, and it said that they wanted to see us in George Steinbrenner's up in his suite, up in his office up there. And, hey, I'm hitting 400. Thurman was hitting the ball over 300. Piniella was hitting the ball extremely well. Catfish was pitching real well. And the team was just coming up. It was just coming up a little bit. And we knew they're not going to trade us. We didn't think. So we come up to the ballpark, right? We went up there. First thing, George had a guy, a barber up there. And, and he said, the Yankees are like that. And, hair is too long. And, and first thing I said to him, I said, screw you. I said, I'm in 406 through August. And there's no way. I mean, you can release me now, and I'll get picked up. And I had no idea what I was saying. And Thurman did the same thing. So we go downstairs. So we left there. We yelled at him. He yelled back at us. And we said, okay, there's 2 things. We're going to be traded. We're going to get released. You can't release us, and we all going to get traded at the same time together. So, so we come back the next day, and I started thinking, and there was a letter, another envelope. And I said, oh, no, I got my walking papers. And all these guys got their, I said, it couldn't happen. So I opened it up. It was a $100 bill. And he said to us, I really respect sticking up for your stuff. And I mean, and to that day, he had respect for us. We respected him. We yelled at him. He yelled at us. We told him screw himself 100,000 times, but that's the type of relationship that we actually had. And everybody said, well, George was a wonderful man. I mean, really did. People that, number one, when he first came to the Yankees and Bill Burke got fired and Billy Martin came on and he sat down with us and nobody knew anybody about George. Nobody knew anything about him. But he sat down and he said, I just want to let you know, I got very deep pockets. But CBS owned the team before George bought them. Okay. And CBS did not want to pay anything for the Yankees in trades or creating none of that stuff. Okay. So George said, 2 things I want to do. I got deep pockets and I'm going to bring back a winner to the New York Yankees. And I want to bring back a winner to the best fans in the world. The New York fans. And that's what he did.
Yeah.
And, and people, people, they're afraid of him because he was, so domineering. He had so much money back then. And, and a lot of my good friends like Art Shamsky and Eddie Cranepool and all those guys are dear friends of mine. And I told them, I think you might have a new owner like Steve Cohen that's going to be like George to spend a lot of money. But George, George, as soon as, after 1 or 2 games, he jumped in like he was a manager. He was a secondary manager. But you know what? We really didn't care, because we knew, we really did not know how much he was going to be involved. Because when Billy was a manager, how many times I'm sitting on the bench or getting ready to hit, and there's a phone call from upstairs. George said, I want you to put this guy in. I want you to put this guy in. And Billy would always say, hey, I'm not taking any more phone calls from you. Don't call me up anymore. And he hangs up the phone. Hey, we said, okay, Billy's going to be going again. He's going to be going to another team, and we're going to be getting another manager. But he respected Billy too. He respected him in a sense where he got rid of him back and forth 3-4 times. And, he had to pay him like 3-4. Jill, his wife, his ex, his past wife, she's still getting paid from all this contract. So, it's really, the Bronx Zoo was really the Bronx Zoo. It was a time that we had crazy guys on the team. We had fights on the team. We had, people did crazy things on the team. And at that time, Studio 54 was real big. All this stuff was big. It's a time and place in New York City where the Bronx Zoo really became a very big idol. And it was fun. It was a great time for baseball. And George brought the team back. And, unfortunately, the team is struggling a little bit now. But if George was still around, that team would have been, it would have been shaken up a long time ago.
So to get back to your move to get Thurman into the Hall of Fame, we're past the point where the writers vote him in. That's gone past. Now it's in the hands of what used to be called the Veterans Committee. Now it's called the Baseball Era Committee.
Yes.
These are people who many times played against Thurman, and you say didn't like him because they played against him. What do you think you have to do to convince them, in particular in their background, that he belongs in the Hall of Fame?
You know what? Maybe people didn't like him, but they respect him. Okay. When you have the Veteran Committee, most of these writers, let's be honest, most of these writers knew about Thurman, but never saw Thurman. Okay. And, I spoke to a couple of guys who were in the Hall. You know what? The Hall of Fame committee that they pick, and what I heard, and I'm brand new at this. I want to get him in, but they said they pick different people. When they have a veteran committee, they pick different Hall of Famers. And, I'm looking at all these guys that are still living. Maybe they didn't like Thurman. The only guy that really hated Thurman and didn't respect him was Fisk. Let's be honest. Hey, they had a running feud. They had a run. Up in Boston, they said that Fisk is the best. In New York, they said Thurman was the best. And when they played against one another, they hated one another. They talked bad about one another, and they fought one another. And we had those fights. And that's what made the rivalry in New York and the Red Sox so good, because you had two guys. And, Thurman was more, Pudge was always a good dresser. Thurman cared less. Sometimes he would eat a hot dog and come out with, on the field with mustard and ketchup on his jersey. And, he's a blue collar guy. He's a guy that, if you had a metal object to kill Fisk, he would do it. And that's the type of guy he was. And, and that's what made the rivalry between the Yankees and the Red Sox so entertaining. Even to this day, if you have to talk about rivalries, if there's no rivalries in sports anymore, these guys making so much money, when they get a base hit, they hug each other. Somebody's on first base, they shake their hands, good hit. You can't slide into second base, no double. You can't break up a double play, and that's one of the prettiest plays, I think, in baseball. If you break up a clean double play and you see the shortstop run about 4 or 5 feet over you when you're sliding, you can't do that anymore. You can't run into the catchers anymore. So baseball's changed a lot. And the rivalry between the teams. But the closest thing now, and what I like now, I love rivalries. They're great for the game. Okay, it's just not baseball, but sports in general. But now you got Tampa and you got the Yankees, and they throwing at each other. And, and I like that, because it's going back to old baseball. And it's not the game like, if you come close to somebody. But nowadays, these guys got so much equipment on. They got elbow pads, they got knee pads, they got sliding pads.
Armor, right?
Oh yeah, and when they on first base, somebody told me, I didn't see this, but the new thing is everybody gets a glove. It's like a mitten when you grill. It's a mitten.
Yeah.
And you put it on, and when you slide, so you won't hurt your fingers. My God, just think about that. You know what? Let me tell you something. We didn't make any money, but we played the game of baseball, right?
Yeah.
And the game of baseball, and I don't know how you feel about it. I hate the analytics of the game.
Yeah.
And that, it had destroyed the game of baseball. After a double day, the pitcher pitches, you see the ball, you swing, you hit it, you run, you make an out, you make an error. Nowadays it's too much. It's like a video game.
Right.
It's exactly like the video. Now they're talking about robotics as an umpire. They call balls and strikes.
Spin ratio on every pitch.
Yeah, a home run is a home run, right? These guys now, they just want to see how far they hit the ball.
And how fast.
And they want to see how hard they hit the ball.
Exit velocity, absolutely. That's why
I have no idea. I don't know anything about them.
Right,
No.
That's why this book is so great. I urge everyone to get it. There's so many great stories. Pete Sheehy, Nate Tarnable. I mean, there's just so many different
Great Father's Day
stories.
gift.
Great Father's Day gift for sure. Interesting. I just have to ask you a quick question because there's a whole bunch about Nate Tarnable, the rhythm and blues guy, but Thurman was more a Doobie Brothers, Allman Brothers type guy. And the name of the book is The Captain and Me, which was an album that was out at that time, had the two great
Doobie
hits.
Brothers.
Yeah, China Grove and Long Train Running. Is that a little homage to like Thurman? Not only because he was the captain and you,
Correct.
but
Yes.
is that a little homage to Thurman's musical taste as well?
Absolutely. You know who got that was Dan Epstein, because Dan Epstein was a very big into music. Very big into music. And when he didn't do sports books, he's done so many things with music. And, he was a guy. And when he picked out the name, to be honest with you, when he picked out the name Captain and Me, I had no idea that was it wasn't one of the Doobie Brothers hit, but it was the name of the album, I think.
Right.
The Captain.
The Captain had two big hits on it. Nicely done by Dan for sure. Ron, where's the best place for people to get this great new book?
Oh, it's very, very simple. Go to Amazon. It's great. Or you could go to my website and I'll sign it directly to you. It's Ron Blomberg. It's 1-0. It's not 2 O's. It's Ron Blomberg, BLOMBERG, Yankees.com. Send it to me. I'll sign it to you. And the funny part about it, it's been out for like almost going on 7 weeks. It's been number 1 3 times, and the lowest it's ever been is like 25 or 30. It's doing extremely well. And the greatest part about it is it's not a baseball book. If anybody remembers the movie, Bang the Drum Slowly, it's a love story. It's you cry, you laugh, and you feel good about it. It's a wonderful, wonderful story between two people became friends and they helped each other out in the game of baseball.
Absolutely. Great read, Ron. Thanks so much for your time tonight. More importantly, thanks for being one of the few Jewish stars in a game here in New York during my childhood, as it was always a big sense of pride for me.
Thank you very much. And remember, I'm down in Georgia and we can't come up to New York. Hopefully we'll come up in July. But this week, dedicate some matzo ball soup to me.
You got it. Ron Blomberg. We will dedicate some matzo ball soup to him. We'll dedicate this commercial. On the other side, we'll talk hockey with Russ Cohn. So keep it tuned right here.
The Phoenix Tube Company Incorporated is among the country's leading manufacturers of structural ornamental stainless steel tubing, rectangles, squares, and processed flat bars. The company takes pride in its everyday commitment to quality and customer service. The philosophy of the company has been and continues to be to support the growth of the stainless tube market through distribution and service centers throughout the country. Ornamental and structural stainless steel tubing is used for a wide variety of aesthetic and mechanical products where superior finish and corrosion resistance are required. Some products manufactured include tubing for mirror bracket arms, boat rails and ladders, washroom grab bars, swimming pool rail products, medical equipment, automotive step bars and trimming, as well as structural framing for food processing equipment. For a quote or for more information on how the Phoenix Tube Company can meet your ornamental and structural stainless steel tubing needs, visit them on the web at phoenixtube.com or call them toll-free at 1-800-526-2124.
And welcome back to Sports Talk New York on the 365 Sportscast Network. If you don't have us on your iPhone, make sure, or your Android, make sure you download the 365 Sportscast app. And also, if you're in your house and you don't want to sit by your computer, download the Alexa app or any smart speaker app and just say, Alexa, play 365 Sports.
Take us with you to the beach.
Absolutely. And you can watch us, on YouTube and Facebook Live. So a special shout out to David Duchovny and John Myers, who are watching us on Facebook Live. It's time now for the NHL Report with Russ Cohn. It's sponsored by our friends over at Soho Table Hockey. What's table hockey, you say? Some of us might have grown up with rod hockey or bubble hockey or even air hockey tables. Soho Table Hockey is embracing the nostalgia of those old tabletop games, designed a whole new board for the future, handcrafted with designer wood, state-of-the-art playing surface, unbendable rods, energy-absorbing walls. This is a table hockey game that players age 8 to 80 can enjoy. Visit Soho Table Hockey to learn more and start your order on the custom game. You can choose your wood, a centerized logo, and even the team matchups. Go ahead, drop the puck. You'll love Soho Table Hockey so much you won't be able to stop playing. It looked for a little while that the Islanders and Tampa might not have stopped playing because it looked like the Tampa was going to tie that up and maybe send that game into overtime. The Islanders, I forgot what the original team was. I don't even remember what sport, but some opposing coach said when you play them, it's death by paper cuts. And that really, really typifies the Islander game. Listen, I've been wrong 2 series in a row. I'll be the first to admit it. Didn't think they were better than Pittsburgh. Didn't think they were better than Boston. I certainly don't think they're better than Tampa. But yet here we sit today with a 1-0 lead in the series by the New York Islanders. What are you seeing from this team right now, Russ?
Well, I mean, you do see a max effort every game, which is, tremendous for them. They don't make a lot of mistakes, and they clog up the neutral zone. I think with Boston, look, they targeted some guys, and the 2 injuries with McAvoy and Carlo, their top 2. You saw what the Islanders were like a couple years ago without Pelech and Mayfield. It's a big deal. But in this game, I really do think Tampa just couldn't get it going early, and they played sloppy. The Islanders took advantage of it. And look, I'm not even going to blame Vasilevsky for the Pulick goal because he's got a tremendous shot. Like, that's just something where, hey, that shot is like a little faster than everybody else. He got it in. All that said, I felt like with 8 minutes to go, maybe Tampa was waking up. I think the big deal for Tampa was they scored a goal. I think the fact that they scored a goal will help them for next game. I think the Islanders played a perfect road game, and Varlamov definitely staying in net. So all of that looks good. They've got to keep it going. I don't think this is a situation where, I know the Islander fans always want to feel like they're the underdog. Just because the media says you're the underdog doesn't mean you're the underdog. But I don't think Tampa is treating them like the underdog. So I don't think there's any difference in this series like, oh yeah, they're going to overlook them or anything. Because if you remember at the very beginning, Cooper put out his guys to play some dirty hockey too, to kind of just set the tone, saying, listen, if this is the way you're going to play the series, we could play it this way too, but it's not our normal way of playing.
So they didn't play together at all, face each other in the regular season. Last time they faced was in the semifinals last year. How much carryover in terms of what they learned from last year is there you'll see as it plays in this series?
I don't think there's any carryover, and I'd be surprised if they even look at video, only because the bubble was such an aberration for everything. So I don't think they'll look at too much for that. I think the teams are both different right now. I think they're both still really good. The sad part about this series is one of them is not going to advance to the Stanley Cup, and both of them are capable of winning it. I don't know if we could say that in the other series. So right now, that's a pretty big deal here. So I still think it goes 7. I still think, Tampa will win a game at home. But the Islanders winning the first game is great for them because it does take a little pressure off of them for sure.
And lastly, Rob Brindamore, his contract is up with Carolina. It appears to me that he definitely wants to stay there. Is he going to use the Rangers to drive up the price? And once he does sign up with whoever he signs up, does that make the coaching carousel start, in earnest?
I do think it makes the carousel start once we see where he goes, but I don't think he's going to use the Rangers to drive the price up because it's Tom Dundon we're talking about, and he's the third lowest paid coach in the league. So you could only drive the price up so much with this guy. Now, the matter is Dundon going to pay the price for all of his assistants and trainers and everything else like he wants? You would have thought this would be done already, and we would have a press conference scheduled for tomorrow, and they would say Rob Brindamore is staying, but they're not. So this is where you kind of wonder, will Tom Dundon sort of outthink himself and maybe say, I'll take everybody but one, or do something that does make Brindamore at least test the market. And if he does test the market, then Dundon's in trouble.
All right, we'll speak to Russ next week. Russ Cohen here each and every week with the NHL Report. Quick break on the other side, Sunday papers, and then the NBA Report. If you're a company looking to increase your visibility, to make sure your promotional materials get packaged in the most attractive way and distributed most efficiently, then you need to call in PIMS. Whether you're launching a new product and need to assemble customized influencer packages, or looking for a more efficient way to manage your inventory and collateral, PIMS involvement helps maximize the impact of your brand's performance. For more than 30 years, PIMS has been helping companies get their message out to the right people, offering personalized distribution services and full-scale inventory management solutions. PIMS works its magic on 3 continents, backed by 350,000 square feet of warehouse space. If you're looking for experience, PIMS is it. They've shipped more than 13 million packages and elevated more than 8,000 brands. Want to know more? Check them out on the web, PIMSinc.com. That's PIMSINC.com, and read testimonials from their satisfied clients. That's PIMS, the first name in marketing support.
You can read it in the Sunday papers.
Joe Jackson can only mean one thing. AJ's Sunday papers. What do you got for us, AJ?
You talk about how athletes are competitive even when they're not competing in their sport. And this week's example of that is Simone Biles. Now, she's one of the greatest gymnasts ever. She just did something no other female gymnast had done on a vault, to the triple somersault over on the landing.
Also the worst Grubhub commercial ever made.
And well, that too. And she's training, of course, for the Olympics. Her boyfriend is Jonathan Owens. He's a safety for the Houston Texans. And he just challenged her to a competition in climbing up a rope. And he got up there, he's leading 3/4 of the way, and she won. And afterward, he said he just burned out. So even that, I don't know what that does for the relationship. But you have to see, apparently she's also going to do some Facebook. You can see the video of it as she prepares to whatever she's doing for the 2020 Olympics. But, even in relationships, athletes are competitive.
I guess so. All right. Well, what is not, what's turning to be competitive, which nobody really thought would be.
Well, I thought that series is competitive. We'll talk about it.
Most people kind of already, listen, all you need to know about the fandom of the Brooklyn Nets is you can drive on lots of major thoroughfares, like on 110 in the parking lot. There's a guy selling Brooklyn Nets championship paraphernalia already. Okay, so
that's because he may get to sell them at the end, but that's
might not. Chaim, tell us what's going on in this series and why the Nets could be in a boatload of trouble with 2 of their 3 guys already out.
Well, yeah, that's what it comes down to, isn't it? That's what we've always spoken about with this team, is if their guys play, they're unbeatable. If they have their full roster, if they have their full complement of stars, nobody can hang with these guys. And for the most part, if they had 2 out of 3, they're 57 seconds away from being up 3-0 in the series, and this thing's a foregone conclusion. Kyrie getting hurt, Harden getting hurt pretty much from the opening tip of this series. It makes it kind of swings things in Milwaukee's favor. Now, Milwaukee also wasn't hitting their outside shot at the beginning of this series, and once that started to drop, and it became Kevin Durant versus the Bucks, then yeah, they were able to run away with the thing. There was just no real answer for them. But and that includes a couple of Chris Middleton miracle shots, right. 4-point plays, and fadeaway threes at the buzzer and things that, I don't know that's necessarily the Bucks can start to rely on, but if it's just them going up against Kevin Durant and Blake Griffin and company, then they're in real good shape.
I mean, did you ever think you'd see a game between these two teams as ugly as Friday night's game?
I mean, it was ugly. It was also really physical. Yeah. Which, again, anybody who grew up on '90s basketball, that was old. That was old Knicks basketball. That's exactly what it was, and that's kind of what you get when you don't have. Kyrie Irving is a finesse player. The guys might have the greatest handles the league's seen, or at the very least, he's in short company. Kevin Durant he's not going to bang. He's not a 7-footer who's going to beat people up with his height. It's fadeaways and turnaround jumpers and a high release. It's a finesse game. You take those guys out of it, it becomes Giannis and company. He's filthy in the paint. He's what Sean Kemp used to be. He's what Dominique was. He's those guys who are going to get in the paint, throw it down, then point and laugh at you and spike it. He's not just blocking shots; he's spiking the blocks. If it can become a physical game, if it can become, grind it out, beat people up, and then kick it out for some threes, then the Bucks are in great shape. They'll kick it out to a Pat Connaughton or whoever it is. PJ Tucker was in the corner for a whole bunch of them. They can get grimy and then kick it out and do their brand of spreading the floor. It's a tough series for Brooklyn. They're not built to bang. They don't have the bodies to bang, and the bodies they do have are way too old and way too brittle.
Lastly, before we go, what has the 76ers been able to do to stop the Hawks that the Knicks were not able to do?
Talent.
Well, first of all, the talent disparity between the 76ers and the Knicks. They have a Joel Embiid. There's that scene in the first Avengers movie, I think. Loki goes through what his plans are, and the response is, we have a Hulk. That's exactly what the Sixers have. There's no answer for Joel Embiid. They have a 7-foot Ben Simmons, and they have guys. They also have more perimeter defenders to throw at Trae Young than the Knicks could ever dream of having. Mitzi Steibel is one of the better disruptive defenders in the league. Shake Milton was doing his thing at some point. They could just keep throwing guards out there, get him off his spot. And I think what the real difference is that there are no second chances. Clint Capella can't run wild. I know Trae Young got all the hype, but the damage Clint Capella did to the Knicks, just because he was able to play off center, because Taj Gibson's never going to take a mid-range jumper, and because Nerlens Noel was no threat, there was no way to get to the rim. The Sixers, Joel Embiid is just bullying people, Capella included. And I think that's the real difference. Trae Young has to work on defense and offense, and he can't just take over because the Sixers are too talented, too big, too strong, and have too many perimeter defenders to throw at them.
Awesome. All right, Chaim Tauber here each and every week with the NBA Report. Quick break. We'll round it out with Jay Retcher, who's probably at Amalie Palace right now watching the Tampa Bay. In the end, people file out of there. But keep it tuned right here for the NFL Report right after this.
Decolator Cohen & DePrisco, LLP, is pleased to introduce their website, policeofficersrighttosue.com, as an educational and informative site designed to instruct members of the law enforcement community of their civil rights in line-of-duty accidents. Many law enforcement members are not aware of their rights to sue and fail to bring lawsuits within a specific time frame, thereby forfeiting their ability to seek rightful compensation against those parties that cause officers to be injured. PoliceofficersRightToSue.com provides successful past results of line-of-duty lawsuits. These examples range from officers being provided with inadequate equipment, RMP accidents, slip and falls, and station house mishaps. If any law enforcement member has a question regarding a potential lawsuit, they can contact DCD at policeofficersrighttosue.com or at 1-800-901-1LAW. That's policeofficersrighttosue.com or 1-800-901-1LAW.
And welcome back to Sports Talk New York on the 365 Sportscast Network. Make sure after us that you stay tuned to BT Talks Baseball. Mackie Sasser joins them. You won't want to miss that. It's time now for the Capco NFL Report with Jay Retcher. Even though it's spring, summer will be here before you know it. It means it's time to get your windows and doors ready to let that fresh air in and the bugs out with a Clearview retractable screen. Clearview retractable screen comes standard with a lifetime warranty and the patented speed reducer so it will not snap back. You get the luxury of a screen door and a sleek low-profile design without the hassle of a bulky storm door or sliding screen door. Call them at 631-440-1100. That's 631-440-1100. Or visit them on the web at clearviewlongisland.com. Hey, Jay, I'm sure you're not the happiest of campers. I'm sure you were out at the Amalie and saw a great hockey game, but not the end that you want. And you'll probably be coming to New York this week as well, probably, right? Jay, you there? I think we might have lost Jay.
Jay's
Jay,
you
you there?
here, but we had a weird noise.
Yeah, something
came up
he
like
might have
something
gotten
like
disconnected. All right.
disconnected. So let's talk a little bit about Le'Veon Bell.
Yeah.
And that really is the story of the day right now. In football, he comes out, he's not a happy camper. You know, is he ever going to be a happy camper? He wasn't a happy camper in Pittsburgh. He had issues in New York. And look, we thought the Jets didn't use him right anyway, that Adam Gase didn't have to use him. But now he goes to the offensive juggernaut in Kansas City, and he's unhappy there too because they have some other good running backs.
They got no touches in the 2 playoff games, sort of very limited time.
Yeah.
So that's going to be interesting. You know, and he's only going to go somewhere that's a contender. The other guy,
but who's going to want him? He's over 30 now.
Right.
He's a running back over the age of 30.
And he's not going to give anyone a discount.
Right.
You know that. So that's going to be an interesting thing. And the other one, you know, we all thought that Richard Sherman was going to come here to New York because he has a great relationship with the coach. He's looking to play somewhere where he's got a shot at the Super Bowl. So for all those Jet fans,
however long, stay tuned. If that doesn't materialize, training camp starts. You know, he doesn't have a contract. He's going to start changing his goals and his requirements.
All right, like I said, keep it tuned right here. BT Talks Baseball, wonderful show is up next. Mackie Sasser, part of the Mets, obviously the Yips and all. Be interesting to hear from Mackie.
You don't want him a battery of Mackie Sasser and Steve Blass.
No, that's for sure. That game would never take place. All right, so keep it tuned right here all night long on the 365 Sportscast Network. We'll see everyone, and you'll hear us next week with a special Father's Day show with Frank Bolton of the Long Island Ducks. So have a great week and a safe one, everybody.